You're listening to Deliberate Living, a podcast that inspires, empowers, and encourages listeners to live life more authentically. My name is Holly Priestley, and I'm a full-time nomad and creator who has been living in my 1997 Ford van since January 1st of 2019. I travel the United States with my dog, learning how to live with more authenticity. I explore different ways people choose to ditch the prescribed life we've all been sold and live on their terms, finding freedom and happiness however they choose. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Deliberate Living podcast. I am your creator and host, Holly Priestley, and this week we have Heather of Travels with Heather with us to talk about her van life, tiny home, just life journey. And I've been following Heather for a little while now on Instagram, and I just really appreciate her sense of humor, and like her honesty and authenticity, and how she seems to just find joy in everything. I always know when I click on your stories, like I'm gonna crack up. Like the story you posted this morning about your bathroom view, I was like, oh fuck, this is gold.
Thank you.
So Heather, for somebody who is listening or watching and maybe hasn't been following you and doesn't know about your story, can you give like a brief high-level recap of your journey over the last few years, how you got to where you are?
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I just got so like warm and fuzzy for that, because that's what I hope people take away from it all.
Yeah.
Who am I? It's actually a crazy time in my life, and I haven't figured out how to tell my story in a nice Instagram bio yet. But I actually studied comedy, was like an actress, hospitality in Toronto, and then fell in love with travel and started backpacking a lot for 5 years. And when that didn't become sustainable, I was like married at the time. My now ex and I were traveling every year, saving all our money. And we were like, do we settle down? Do we buy a house? We're miserable. So that really wasn't a happy option for us. Then I moved into a van. And so I sort of went from a digital nomad to a van lifer and did that for a few years. And then the pandemic hit. And now I'm, I guess, a tiny home lifer, converting a van. And I went through a divorce, which was probably like the craziest transition, starting a new life. So I don't know who I am right now. I'm me, but I don't know how to describe who I am, because I'm just like a new person on a journey. I'm a person on a journey.
Yeah. I think that's really awesome. And like equal parts an exciting and probably a scary place to be. I know, I mean, for me, I haven't gone through a divorce necessarily, but I've gone through a lot of life changes and relationship changes and lifestyle changes and career changes. And, you know, there's just times in life when you're like, I don't know where I'm going or who I am or what I'm supposed to be doing right now. I'm just going to figure it out. And if somebody asks who you are, what you do, you're like, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like I'm a me, and like I'm Heather, and I create things, and I like to share stories, and I'm curious. So like that, I guess, would be who I am. But like what I do, I do like 50 different things. What I do, whatever brings income in, and I don't know if I'm a van lifer anymore because I'm not full-time in a van. I don't know if I'm a digital nomad anymore because I'm not traveling, but I'm not traveling. Yeah, I don't know how to describe myself, but I'm me. Yeah. I'm a me, and that's who I am. And I'm super excited about not knowing what's going on. But maybe that's the van lifestyle.
Yeah. I want to kind of dive into that a little bit more, to be excited about the unknown. I feel like the unknown at different times in my life, and I know for a lot of people, the unknown can be really unnerving and really scary and not be an exciting thing. And I feel like some people are born with a personality where like, oh man, the unknown is like my favorite thing on the planet. And I think some people, for me, I've had to teach myself, like, I don't know what's coming next. I don't know who I am. I don't know where I'm going. But you know what? This is an opportunity, and I get to play, and I get to do whatever I want. So what do I actually want? And then like making it a game and making it fun. But it took deliberate effort to do that. Do you think that you have always been like this? Like young Heather, teenage Heather was like, the unknown is wonderful? Or do you think your backpacking, your vanning, your divorce, your tiny house thing, do you think you learned it along the way?
That's really interesting. I think it's probably 50-50 actually.
Okay.
Like I grew up as a creative kid. So my family did community theater and I was an artist and I really loved history. Like I was a bit of a nerd. And so I was like an actress and I loved history. So I was always kind of um like looking beyond to everything. Sorry, I've lost a bit of track of the actual question, overthinking this. What was it again?
Have you always been excited by the unknown, or
Right.
did you have to teach yourself?
Right. Perfect. Sorry. Yeah. So I think that's why I was leading into it because it's like the art and acting and history is a bit like I was always curious. So I did always have this urge to like answer questions and have discussions. And I was really into like philosophers and debating when I was like nerdily probably when I was a kid. Uh, and then I did sorry, I'm completely losing track of
That's
this,
okay.
what I'm trying to say here. Right. So, yeah, so I think as a kid, I was always curious. And then I actually have ADHD,
Mhm.
which I find if I'm stagnant and if I don't have change, it tends to bring a lot of anxiety. So before I was in love with, you know, before I was in love with change and living in a constant state of change, it was kind of there. It was lingering. And then it really was a moment that I think hit me where I was completely out of my element. I was on a train platform in, I believe it was like Belgium, which I don't speak the language. And I had no idea how to get to my hostel. I didn't know where I was. I was in a foreign country. I had nothing but my backpack. And like I just had to get somewhere and I had no Wi-Fi. And so I had no consistency. Like everything was changed. There was nothing but new things every single day. Um, and I realized that my anxiety level and my fear and my depression was so much lower when there was
Wow.
maximum change, like when I had real problems to worry about, when there was real change, and when I was constantly dealing with new situations versus like going to work every day, standing at the same bus stop. So I'm not sure if I explained it very well because I did lose track a few times, but I think it's because it's such a great question. It really is. I worked at it because I realized it was something that I needed to be happy and that
Yeah.
my natural state of like what makes me feel alive is new and is the change. And so that has become comfortable for me to like, yeah, to really give that a long, weird answer.
No,
Um,
I think that was really interesting to like hear the processing of it. And I think that you know, summed it up at the end very succinctly. And I think, you know, I don't have ADHD, but my brain does work in that like, oh, this is new and different and like this is good and like it. I like change. I've always liked change, but I didn't necessarily embrace it, right? Because there's a way that life is supposed to go and you're supposed to do it this way, and this way, the you know, the prescription that we're all sold is not exactly like be rearranging your living room every month. And like that's how I found change in my previous life, was like doing things like that. And it was like I just need something novel, I just need something new. And then, you know, I would subconsciously like self-sabotage my attempts at routine and normalcy, right? So I've never fulfilled a lease in my life. Like I've never lived anywhere for more than a year. I've lived in the van longer than I've lived anywhere than since my parents' house when I was like 17. Um, and like some of that was a deliberate choice, like I need newness and I need novelty. And some of it was a subconscious, like I'm going to sabotage everything because I need chaos right now.
That's so interesting. That's so funny too, because I used to do the same thing. Like every so often, I was like, I have to completely rearrange my room, or like, and then in between, you'd like, I'm gonna cut my hair, and then I'm gonna
Something.
like reinvent my wardrobe, or like, yeah, it's just constant. Yeah, you were right when you put it. Like you get it all right, and then you're like, no, now it's
No.
too perfect. I don't like it. Uh, but I wonder, yeah, that was there before van life and the travel, but it definitely like helped me. I mean, I'm 37 too, so I don't know a lot of things, but I feel like I'm finally like coming into like it as like like I'm finally
Uh-huh.
knowing who I am in the last like few years and being less apologetic. I think they're like my
Yeah.
fucks given level does
Oh
drop. I
man.
think at like 35, there's a serious like, oh, I all of a sudden don't care.
I've been feeling the same way over the last few years. I feel so much more myself today than I ever have before.
Mhm.
Like I just feel like I'm coming more into myself. And yeah, the 30s are kind of a magical decade for women, I think.
Yeah, I think it's because of course in your 20s you're like, I know everything.
Yeah.
And then in your 30s you're like, oh my
No,
God, I
I
was
don't know
it.
anything.
Not yeah, not to put down any 20 year like that's I because I'm sure people in their 40s are like 30-year-olds know nothing.
Yeah, yeah. When I get to be a 60 or 70 or 80-year-old, wise crone, I'm going to be like, man, when I was 70, I thought I knew everything. And turns out at 80, I know even less.
Oh, I know. And they have so much energy too. I have some like younger, like because van life's great. You know all different kinds of people. So I know some,
Yeah.
like the like university students in their 20s, and it's
Mhm.
like so invigorating. But I think I'm still really young for my age, but I'm at that point where I'm like, whoa, there's a lot of energy. Like, oh, easy there, Turbo. Like, go off, have fun, live your life. But like, oh, the kids.
Yeah. Oh, the kids these days. I feel like
Yeah,
such a
so much
grandma.
energy. Yeah, so much energy running around, traveling so quickly.
Yeah, they're just constantly moving. And I'm like, aren't you tired? I'm
Yeah, I need
tired
to sleep.
watching you.
I need to sit in my van and like sit on my porch and judge the world a bit.
Yeah, quietly,
Look out my window with
still. Yeah, like
yeah.
I just want to watch the world go by a little bit more and observe. And yeah, but when I was younger, I was definitely like on the go all the time, constantly doing things, constantly like just going. And now I'm tired.
Oh yeah. I mean, I do have a hard time resting and sitting down, like especially now not in the van because
Yeah.
I'm in nature. It's really weird. I'm on a farm in
Yeah.
Ontario. So I'm surrounded by fields and birds, but it's not the same as like being in your van. Like we have Crown land in Canada, so I guess it's BLM land in the US.
Mhm.
But like, like off on a logging road somewhere, like kind of really, really remote. And that feels so nice. That's the slow I need. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, nature, bare feet. Well, it was winter too, so.
Yeah. Can you share a little bit about how, if you know the answer to this question at all, and um I feel like it's kind of a trick question because I wouldn't know how to answer it either. How you go through the new evolutions of Heather and how you keep evolving into a different version of yourself, like going from backpacking to vanning to tiny housing, going from married to divorced, going, starting your new podcast and your emporium. I'm so excited for that. How do you know like what to do next?
Ah, oh, I love that. I love these. This is great. What's funny? I don't, and sometimes people like I shared a post the other day that people, I was like, "You're so confident being yourself," and I'm like, "No, no, I'm like I am me," and then I'm awkward and stubborn. So it's like I just no matter what I'm trying to do, if I try to not like if I just am not doing it my way, it doesn't work. Um, but how do I these are such big questions and then I get thinking about them and then I forget what I'm trying to say, so I'm so sorry. So again, what was the question, because I'm so excited. What was the exact question?
How do you know what to do next in the evolutions of
Well,
Heather?
right, yeah, I know. It's
I can
it
try and ask smaller
no
questions. I just
I
like the
love
big ones.
oh no, I'm loving this because I feel like, yeah, I'm totally just like, yeah, I don't know, let's think this through together,
Yeah.
team. um You know what? It's been so interesting because there's aspects that I share a lot of my life, but there's
Mhm.
aspects that I'm working through how to share. So a lot of it, the biggest thing was that like I don't know. It's been so driven by like depression and a need to survive and never feeling like I fit in and never feeling like I belonged, and being bullied for weight and just for thinking differently and for being differently, and like whoever I am, that I couldn't be someone else. I just couldn't fit in. And you mentioned earlier, like, society has a certain way of doing things, and I didn't agree with it. It didn't seem right with me. So it wasn't so much that I knew what I was doing, it was more just that I needed to make the choice at times for, like, survival. Like, I've struggled with, when I was in my teens, I had, like, attempted suicide twice before I graduated high school. Like, not seriously, but that's weird to say. But it was like I was in my late 20s, really unhappy in my career, really unfulfilled, miserable, didn't want to wake up, unhappy in my new marriage. So most of my decisions have been like, how do I find a way to just like survive this life? Which sounds so dark, but it's ended up being beautiful, because the only way that I can get myself to get up in the morning. I know it sounds dark, but it really is. It's the truth. And I think a lot of people might have something similar. So it's just, I'm finding myself by, how do I get through the next day? Mind you, that process, like, I'm 37, so this process has been decades in the making. So at this point, by the time I was at my travel stage and my marriage, I was still going through a lot of depressions. My marriage was not a healthy one. And it's something I'll talk about more as I navigate how to do that. So it was almost, it took losing myself and the risk of losing myself and my stubbornness at not at you know at not wanting to kill myself. That sounds so dark, but it's the truth, and it's blunt, and I don't and it is. But it took basically being like, I'm not gonna cop out, I'm gonna stick around, but I can't live this way. So every single step was just how to do it. And as I found something that worked, as I found the travel that made my like soul feel alive, and as I found social media in terms of like sharing my message and like my passions, and as I found all that, I also found myself and realized my self-worth, and then sort of having to leave this marriage, realizing that it wasn't healthy. I wasn't going to be able to get where I wanted to be in life as like who I wanted to be. So I've, as I do it more every year, it's easier to know how to do this and know how to take these changes. And I think in the last year, there's been so much growth because I was alone and I had this whole new life, and I was sort of reprogramming myself from some of the beliefs that had been put into my head about who I was over the last year. So now I think coming out of that, I can say like, this is who I am, F off, like I am who I am, deal with it. And I just don't have the time to not be. So now I can make decisions going forward. But I also listen to the universe too. Like I've learned that when I'm doing what I feel is right, and when I'm making choices based on like my truth, the universe will bring things into my life, and then I can just notice them. And if something comes in and it really resonates, or it like calls my attention in a certain way, I kind of go down that avenue. So I have a system, but I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm listening to the universe, and I'm just listening to myself, I guess. And that has taken me here.
I really, really enjoy that story. I think that it's, you mentioned multiple times that, it's kind of dark and it's kind of blunt. And I don't think there's any need to apologize for that, because I think a lot of us go through those times and it can be really isolating. And I mean, it's so universal, but when you're going through it, you feel like you're the only one who's ever going to feel this way and no one's going to understand. But I think that your telling of it, and your living of it is a very, beautiful cultivation of kind of find the joy. Like, I'm going to keep living, so I might as well try to not hate it. Like, let's just find a way that I don't hate it. this thing feels kind of good. Cool. Let's do more of the thing that feels kind of good. And if you just do the thing that feels kind of good, 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 eventually it gets better. But there's still, I mean, depression and anxiety are things that you kind of have to deal with. They for most of us who have them, they don't go away. They just kind of, they recede and they come back, and they recede and they come back. And so like having a toolkit with all of your different lessons that you learned, like, okay, sometimes this makes me feel better. Let's try this. That didn't work. Okay, let's try this other thing, and even if none of them work, you tried, and, it took time to try. So you're at least here that much longer because you tried all the things.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's just like getting through the next day,
Mhm.
really, because it's just time plays such like a factor in things. I think if I get like really like philosophical, because I did sort of look at it like I have this time as Heather on this planet, and what do I want to do with it? And like I am stuck here because I don't want to cop out. So I have all these years of time to fill, and I don't want to be like I do work a lot. I'm a bit of a workaholic, but I work on like passion projects, and most of what I've managed to do that. And the privilege of that also doesn't escape me, the fact that I can make my mental health such a priority.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's just it has permeated my entire way of living, and is basically about making yourself happy. And then it's weird too, because you had mentioned that I'm so positive on Instagram, and for a long time I kind of like was like, oh, am I being fake? Because some people that know me, a little secret, some people that know me personally really well um can tell, or maybe anyone following me a lot can tell when I have my ups and downs by the nature of my stories, or how often I story,
Mhm.
or like if I'm talking to the camera a lot more. But I do also make a point that if I am bummed out, I come on and I like share it and I make it a positive. And then I thought I was maybe like being fake. Like, am I doing that thing where I make
Oh.
everything seem perfect? Like in my head, I was like, is this insincere? Because I'm lying. And like I lie. I mean, I lied about my marriage and what was happening for a long time. So this is a new thing that I'm really calling myself out on. But then I realized that actually by coming on and being intentionally positive and making the choice to be positive, I could help people, which genuinely helps me. Like if I like, nothing makes me feel better than when I get like when you asked me to be on the podcast, I teared up a little bit. It was so
Oh.
sweet. So I mean, it's like that. That's my coping mechanism. I found is like if I can put out and turn my negatives into a positive, and then like resonate with people, then that makes me more positive, and I'm like, well, I want to be here more because like I'm doing something worthwhile. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's fun.
Oh, I
Oh,
really appreciate that. I try and do the same thing. We had an episode a couple of weeks ago on how to use social media mindfully, because it can be a really toxic space. I believe that it can be used for good if we use it intentionally and mindfully and deliberately. And so I think that's really resonant with that, because it is like I want to show up and be authentic and genuine. And sometimes my authentic, genuine self is sad. And
yeah.
sometimes like having the opportunity to talk about, like, I'm sad, here's how I'm going to try and not be sad, but also if you're sad, that's okay. We all get sad.
Yeah.
Like Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, whatever the fuck, they all get like kind of a bad rap. They're just showing the highlight reels, and people are faking it, and their lives aren't as good as they look. And it's like,
Mhm.
I don't think anybody thinks anybody else's life is perfect, but yeah, it can be kind of isolating sometimes. And so I think that one thing that has really helped me over the last year or two is seeing other women, especially women, um, who are around about my age, give or take 10 years, going through hard things, going through divorce, going through a career change, going through childbirth, going through whatever, going through hard life things, and sharing about it and being honest and vulnerable, sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly. And reading other people's stories or hearing other people's stories really helps me be like, oh, I can share mine. I should share mine so that I can pay it forward. And I've had people come back to me and be like, thank you for sharing that. It inspired me to do this thing. And that makes me tear up and makes me be like, oh my God, I'm so glad that I went through that hard time so I can help this person with their hard time. Like it's great.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like weird. It's like a math thing I was saying. It's like if I have one bad experience and then I can help two people not
Mm.
have that bad experience, then it's a math thing. So it's like even if I have one person, then I've canceled out the positive with the negative. But like a negative can make a positive, and nobody understands. It's
Yeah.
math. It's just
Yeah.
math, and which is crazy. I'm such a geek, and I'm so much of like how I think people live our lives is very like quantum physicsy, and I feel like you can see
Yeah.
like the lessons in math and nature are like you can learn everything. I think it always comes back to some sort of balance, some sort of circle, some sort of lesson and cycle. Freaking cycles. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just going off on a ramble of nature and why it's cool, but
I mean,
yeah,
nature is great. I'm here for it.
yeah, that's the thing for me. It's all connected. It's like positive, and it's all energies, right? If you can just take your negative anxiety, and I mean we can feel the anxiety, like we don't always acknowledge what it is, but like you can feel that like dark grossness inside of you, and if you
Yeah.
can just take that and turn that energy into creativity or something positive, it can expand. I don't know. I'm not a science. I don't know if this
Yeah.
is science. Is this science? It could be science. One day I
Yeah.
think this will be science.
I completely agree. I've noticed for me, when I share things and when I don't share things, the magnitude of the feeling changes. If I don't share it and I dam it up and I keep it inside me and I'm like, whatever, like this is my issue. I'm not going to share this with anybody. I'm just going to like dam it inside me and hold it back. Then it gets worse. And like it has a heavier weight, it has more power over me. And if I just like, I'm like, all right, cool, feeling a thing. Let's let it go. Let's let it flow. Let's let it just feel its way out. And then it kind of like moves on a little quicker because I just let it go and like
Yeah.
didn't just try to like prevent it from happening. Like just embrace like, well, this is how we feel today. So
Well, and
what are
it's
we
a
gonna do
health
about it?
thing. Yeah, and I find it's all like interconnected as well, because I've just got like a slew of fun things. So I've got something called fibromyalgia, which is a chronic pain thing,
Mhm.
but it's also like depression and anxiety, yada yada. But actually, like it's very affected by by weather pressure, but also by like my diet and my mood. So and even
Mm.
if you have fibromyalgia or not, they're like I feel like studies are really just coming out now a lot more and more about like what stress can do to you. And I was
Yeah.
in this like life after trauma group, and they were talking about childhood traumas and how when you live in that fight or flight mindset, you can actually alter, because what is like the adrenal gland, and you're releasing cortisol, I believe, and your body gets used to releasing that much that it constantly does, and that actually just stops not only does it stop your mind from being able to function properly, it literally stops your like body from being able to absorb nutrients. So it's like
Yeah.
if you're not, and I don't know enough, but I'm starting to really kind of dig into this like what is it, like the sound vibration
Mhm.
healing stuff, and I'm really into a lot of dance and movement, and part of that's to like move my body as a workout, but part of it is like if you work like a little bit of a meditation and maybe some like chakra um energy work into there and start to think about everything connected, you can like change your vibrations. I mean, they're saying even like humming can reduce stress because it can just reset your
Really?
body. Like that thing inside when you hum and your whole
Mhm.
body vibrates, that can actually help reset your body. Like
Wow.
if you've been around, like I don't know, so this is a lot of new, but like if you're around a lot of electrical stuff that can screw that up, you can reset, or like somebody that's in a really bad mood. So
Mhm.
like right now, I think studies are starting to catch up to maybe some of like the more like psychic-y things, or like the empathy, like that kind of stuff.
The woo
So
woo.
I mean, yeah, I don't know it all, but I think it's quite interesting. And I do know that like for me, it's like I can feel when I'm stressed that my health, like my skin isn't nice, my hair. I mean, I've like female, like I've over the last year, I got so stressed that I stopped ovulating for 2 months. So it's like
Whoa.
like your emotions 100% can affect physical things. So it's like, even if it's
Yeah.
not for your mental health, it's like my body is just going through hell, my mind's going through hell. So it is like a holistic approach, I think. There's so much to
Yeah.
learn. I don't know. I'm not like trained in any of it. I just am a nerd.
I've always felt that way. And I never, when I like, I remember in high school, I first had this concept, like watching other people like have wildly different lifestyles, even though I was in a town that wasn't particularly diverse in a lot of ways. So it was kind of a good petri dish of like what happens for different people. And like it was a privileged area for sure. It was kind of this weird little bubble in America. Um, but watching people who had certain attitudes receive certain situations that seem totally unrelated, and I could see that, and I noticed it in myself, how like my attitude changed and what came to me at that time, et cetera, et cetera. And I didn't have the words for it, except to be like, it's kind of like a magnet, and like now that I'm older and I've had a lot of woo woo self-education on, manifesting and energy and that sort of thing. Like, yeah, obviously, but I always had this like understanding that was kind of fuzzy and you can't put your finger on, of like that sort of issue. And it does feel, especially in Western cultures, that we're so compartmentalized. Like the body is its own thing, and if the body is having a problem, we are going to fix the problem with the body. But like the mind has so much to do with the body, and more science, especially in the Western world, is coming out. Science, left brain stuff that will prove, the right brain woo woo that like is, fallacy or whatever. But like I don't think it is. I think that like if the body's having a problem, that is a symptom of a deeper issue. And so if you put a band-aid on it, you're not necessarily going to fix it. You're just going to change the manifestation of the issue. So, handle your symptoms however you need to survive the day. But ultimately, like there's something else going on. Like if you're having stomach issues over and over and over again, like taking Pepto-Bismol is only going to help you so many times. Change your diet, right? And find a diet that works for you. All bodies are different, whatever. And then also treat your mind, treat your brain, treat your soul, your heart, your gut. Like, it all needs some kind of attention. And like, I could definitely go on a rant about it. But again, like you, like it's all like, I know a little bit about it. I've read a little bit about it. I've listened to a podcast or a documentary, and like, I have my own understanding, but I don't have words for it. But I feel the same way.
Which is nice. Was that we can't both? Well, we could both be crazy. It's interesting that you
We
like
could
I have
both be
my own
crazy.
I think well we might be, but it's interesting that you say you have your own understanding, because I kind of took a lot of time in my life to like not educate myself on
Mm,
certain things, but I don't know if I did this consciously. It is really weird. Because like I read tarot cards as well, but I like really am into science and history and like the facts and that kind of mindset, like an engineering, his
mhm.
scientific mindset. But I read tarot cards and it just
Yeah.
happens. And I read auras, and I've been working on reading people a bit more, and it happens, and like it's there, it happens, it resonates with them. I seem to get it right. So I have spent a lot of time trying to like find science behind it as well. Um, but I know now I just always keep thinking about that, because it is like we accept, I don't think this is what we're talking about, but we accept that like in our cell phones, we use quartz crystals in our memory chips. I have no idea how that works. I cannot wrap my head
Yeah.
around how we do that. And then you hear about the crystal skulls, which I'm not necessarily saying, but it's like then somebody's like, oh, you have an amethyst on your window, you're like a crazy hippie. And you're like, really, you have a quartz in your phone? Boom. Yeah, how does that even work? Like, I don't know. I can't even understand it. But it's like some things we can accept. We accept Wi-Fi going through the air. We accept all these radio signals around us, but we don't accept that somebody feeling stressed or anxious beside us could like affect us.
Our own mood. Yeah.
It's like it's there. And I mean, manifesting, even, I don't think it's all this magic. People talk about magic, but it's like, no, if you think about something a lot, you're gonna start doing things even subconsciously to take you there. And you're going to be more aware of it. So it is like, it's like, I think it's one and the same, and people eventually will catch on.
I think so. I hope that in like 50 or 100 years, you know, if somebody finds an old archive of this podcast, they're like, they knew what they were talking about.
They were futurists.
Look at those little baby futurists. They don't know what's going on yet, but they're trying.
I know. I hope so too. Cause like the world is in this state where it's like, we're either going to explode and fall apart, or like maybe pull through it. And like, I feel so bad. I don't have a lot of faith in humans. It's so weird. I was talking about crows the other day, and then I had this big philosophical moment in the bathroom. I have a lot of deep thoughts on the toilet.
Well, that makes sense.
But exactly. It's my idea of all my business. But it was like, I got into this weird thought process because I was talking about how I wanted a crow because they talk. And my friend was like, that's parrots. And I'm like, also crows, not important. But then I thought, how crazy is it that we humans think we're so smart, but I can't speak any other animal's language, and most humans don't even acknowledge that animals speak. And here this crow, who used to be a dinosaur, not really, but like who's been around whose ancestors have been around way longer than mine, who like ruled the world for longer than mine did, he learned English. And like he learned my human language and now is like comprehending it. And I can't do that. I don't know. I'm not saying there was like anything behind, but I got into this really long thing about like humans and how we're really not that special.
Yeah, we're not. We think we're that special, but we're not that special. I think that a lot of human behavior these days, like the stuff that is really pushing us towards extinction is a lot of fear-based behavior. And I do have hope. I have to, right? Because that's how I'm going to survive another day, is by having hope that it will get better. I have hope for the younger generations to kind of realize it in ways that we didn't. But I think that if you look back, you know, millennials are fucked. We didn't stand a chance, our poor generation. But we know a little bit more about the workings of the world and energy and woo. You know, we're little baby woo people, but we know more than most of our parents' generations, who knew more about it than most of our grandparents' generations. And like Gen Z and whatever the generation is after them, do they have a name yet? I don't know. Like they have so much more access to it. And from what I've seen, they are kind of like more polarizing. Some of them are way more on the earth destruction fear scale, but some of them are also way more on the like, I love my body because this is how I show up. I love, you know, like what are pronouns? Who even needs them? I think that there's so many of them that are like already there, and they don't have to unlearn quite the level of things that we had to unlearn to get to where we are.
It's funny that you say too, it's polarizing, because I agree with what you're saying, that like the millennials are kind of like, we're mixed. Like we kind of like, there's so many of these new things that I'm like, yes, I'm a free thinker, I'm open. But then there's some things that I'm like, whoa, you know, are we going too far? Do we need, like, could we just do this? But like, I'm trying to not be stodgy. But then, the younger generations, it seems that they're like, I'm always surprised how many are still like boomer men, not to insult boomers, because boomers are kind of old hippies now, so it's hit or miss. But like I'm surprised how many young people are like harsh conservatives still. But there are a lot out there, and it's so awesome because like they're growing up in a time where like I think maybe the word trigger can be overused a little in a sense, to like a coddling sense. But I think it's so important that we have this vocabulary. Like I'm self-aware. This is a trigger to me, because like how you respond to your triggers is one thing, or if you expect everybody to accommodate your trigger, that's different.
Oh
That's
my
not one.
God.
But having the vocabulary to say this is a trigger, this is a trauma I had, like I'm doing shadow work, even the fact that like these things, or like it was so nice. I was in a small town, ordered pizza, and there's like a brook by the pizza place. So I'm like, I'm going to order pizza and then I'm going to go sit by the water and meditate while it's being made. That's what van lifer hippies do.
That
So I
sounds
went
great.
down to I was like, this is perfect. I'm going to get pizza. I'm going to meditate. What's wrong with this? I went down, and then there was like up the river, like along the stream. I'd been there for about 5 minutes. A younger guy, like I pegged him as maybe late high school, but he popped out from like from the woods onto the brook and sat down and started doing the same thing, and didn't notice me right away because I'd been looking at him. And then I thought it was weird because he was like in my eye line when I was meditating, and he looked over and he waved at me, and we waved at each other. And I just thought how awesome that we're living in this world where like you see somebody sitting meditating and you don't judge them. You don't think it's weird. Like some people do, but more and more now it's like, oh, I was meditating. Oh, I was manifesting. And you're like, yeah, cool. These are like things that we can say now. So I feel like that could be like the beginning steps.
Yeah. I mean, having a language for certain feelings or certain, laws of the universe, or, certain self-work, I love that I can say to somebody like, like, oh, I'm working on some shadow work. Like, this is an issue of mine. Let me tell you about it. Like very, like not emotionally charged, just like, here are the facts. I get upset by these things and here's why. So I'm working through it. Like for me to be able to share things like that other people might feel are vulnerable. But for me to be able to share them like non-emotionally, just like, oh, these are the facts. This is how my body works. This is how my brain works, is definitely a huge win. And I think that the more we can do things like that, the more we use the language properly, the more we, share and like speak our truths and just exist as we are, we're giving more people permission to kind of do the same things or explore the same things, or we're opening ourselves up to be potential teachers for them, like, oh, what is shadow work? Please tell me more. And like being able to have conversations like that is awesome. And, you showing up and meditating by the brook and having somebody else be like, oh, that looks nice. I want to do that. Like you're giving them more, like exposure, I guess, to the whole thing. And that's the point of my podcast 2 years ago, was like, I need to share more ways people are living deliberately alternative lifestyles, because going by the status quo, going by society's expectations works for some people. It doesn't work for, I would say, most people, but we don't have enough representation of people not doing it that way. So I just want to share more stories. And that's the whole goal, is seeing people like live life, how it works for them, and then being like, okay, cool. Now how do I make my life work for me? I think you do that.
Excuse me. Sorry. Yeah, thank you. And I like that, because you were saying like deliberate living, because it is. I often wonder, like, are we all in on a secret? But I do wonder how many people are happy, or how many people just go with it. And I think it is about being deliberate, because if you, like, my sister and her husband really wanted a family, they really wanted to live in like a little farm community and be like a farming family. I really do not want to live any sort of domestic life like that. But it's not, but like no one life is better than the other. I mean, every lifestyle is needed, and we can't all really, like, we can't all be on the road, and we can't all be in houses. And I think the point is to be deliberate, is to wake people up. I mean, it is a lot of what I try to share, is to get them curious and questioning and thinking, and like, I work my 9 to 5. Do I like it? If not, why do I do it? Am I doing it for a reason that, like, is it worth it? Is the trade-off worth it? Are my sacrifices worth my gain? Or am I just sacrificing? I'm having so much trouble, actually, with the personal story time, with the fella I'm dating. I'm such a like financial mindset, and I really respect saving. And
Yeah.
yet I do not believe that saving for the future mindset of work, don't live, save all your money, buy a house.
Post it, like, yeah.
Yeah. And so it's really tricky, because I really respect his work ethic and I really respect this in him, but he saves a certain amount every month for a down payment, which is amazing. And I'm new, so I'm like, most girls would be like, yeah, that's amazing, he's gonna buy me a house. But on one hand, I respect him so much for this, and I think that's amazing, and there's so much good in that. And like, it also is, it's cool that he's been doing this for years. He's going to be set. We're not, it's new enough, so that's not my business.
Yeah.
But it also is really hard, because I'm having this moral issue where him and I are not able to like take the vacation time. He wants to come in the van and do more road trips, but he can't. And we're not really able to like do things now, because he's saving. And so it's just very interesting, because obviously, this is something that we're navigating and it's new. So there's different levels of like intimacy in relationships where you team up, and that like being married versus date, I understand all that, but it is interesting that I'm encountering someone of that mindset, and I'm having to sort of ask myself and answer these questions of like, I really respect that mindset, but why is it hitting this pit of my stomach? Why is it like somebody rubbing my fur the wrong way? Like, why is this just so wrong? And I think it is that there's like our life now, and potentially what we're doing now is being affected by a future that may not happen. My dad was retired for a year before he had his heart attack. And passed away. So it's like, and then with me and my depression, it's like, I don't even care about living to retirement if I'm not happy now.
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
I think that our generation definitely has a lot of trust issues where it's like, I don't trust that this is going to be worth it, and our parents and our grandparents and stuff, that's what you did. You got a job and you worked at the same place for 50 years, and then you retired, and then you retired, and that was like a new life. Although, what does that even look like? And I think our generation, some people will call it entitled, like, you just want to have fun right now and not work hard. But like, bitches like you and me work all the time. We have so many projects going on. You have so many projects going on. I have so many projects going on. We work a lot. We might as well also enjoy life, because it's not guaranteed. You could get hit by a bus tomorrow or today, And so I think that we have trust issues around, like, I'm going to save for the future, because statistically speaking, my shelf life is pretty long as a human, but also I don't just want to wait, because it might not come. So we're balancing the, like, I'll probably live a while, but just in case I don't, I'm going to have fun too. And so I think maybe that's why it kind of feels that way, because it's like putting all your eggs in this future basket, and we don't trust the basket.
Yeah, the basket. We've been lied to. And it is, I'm a history nut too. So I find I talked a lot about this. Like, I was able to go over to Europe. And you see it in North America, but North America is a lot newer as a country, like not newer inhabited, but as like a country and the concept and like society. But it's the whole concept of being like a kid, having a childhood or a teenager. Like my grandparents were in the war, but like one side had to flee the Nazis and the other side fought them. And the other side was in the British Air Force, and they had to grow up really quickly. And they immigrated, so they were Scottish, so white immigrants, but I'm a product of like immigrants in a way, or directly. So they came over, but historically, there had never been a period of even 100 years or 50 years where there wasn't some crazy shit going down. So this concept of like needing to secure your home, and also homes were what you had, property was what it was. So this, when you're going even into like the 1900s, owning property is really important. and you don't have a childhood, and you don't get to choose who you marry, and you don't get to choose your life. And then the world wars happen, and all of a sudden you start to see in like the 50s and 60s where you have teenagers and you have like teeny boppers, and you have this time where like nothing is happening in the world to threaten you directly. And we don't even have the depression. Like, for the first time, people could chill in like the 50s and 60s and 70s and actually focus on culture and music and arts and a home life. And that's when you see all these like appliances and the technology's catching up. So now I think by the time you see like a lot of us that were brought up in the 90s, where we have Nintendo, and like for the first time in like the 90s, things were marketed to kids.
Yeah.
And now we're adults. So we do have this sort of like sweet spot, I think, in history where we are tied to the dark. Like we remember our aunt, like our grandparents maybe talking about certain things. And then we maybe remember like certain things, but then we remember our parents talking about like the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, and business was booming, and commerce and economy. And now here we are with like the internet, which didn't exist, and all this access to all this information and all this extra time. And I mean, it's very interesting because since COVID and Russia, like the world's getting a bit weird.
Yeah.
Sorry,
well,
cut out.
We had enough time where like bullshit didn't happen.
But anyway, yeah, it's sort of this like weird time where we have all this information, all this time, and the ability to like choose what we want to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, now the world potentially is falling apart again. So all of that might go up in the air. But yeah, that's what I think about it. That's how I see our generation, that we're in this time when they're like, we can remember that and have this freedom. So maybe we can do something with it, like learn from the mistakes.
Yeah, that's the pessimist in me who's not quite sure that's gonna happen, but we could try.
Chortle.
Yeah, we can learn to live with people making decisions that we cannot control, and so we can control the things that we can control, and we can control. I mean, especially you and I, not working for a corporation, doing a Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 salaried benefited cubicle position that only gives you 2 weeks off a year. We can control a little bit more of our surroundings. And in some ways that makes us feel better, more in control, which is just an illusion. But we get to prioritize. Like, I'm going to prioritize my mental health. I'm going to prioritize joy. I'm going to prioritize daily dance parties and, doing things that make me happy. And I think, given the lifestyle that we've chosen to live with vanning and traveling and self-employment and all of that, we've seen life slightly differently than, other people who have gone the more traditional route, and they don't necessarily know that there are other ways to live. They don't know that. Maybe they don't even know that they're miserable sometimes. They're just like, well, this is life and this is normal. Like, when I became a vegetarian, it was an accident and my body responded really well to it. But I hadn't known that I didn't feel well the first time, because that was just normal. Like, my body feels fine. I was 18 years old, so I was like largely pretty healthy and like had energy and was fine. But after a month of not eating meat on accident, like, I was suddenly like more energetic and like less achy, although I wouldn't have said that I was tired and achy before. Like, I just didn't know. I didn't know what I didn't know. And now I know. And so the van and self-employment and traveling like this and having freedom of time, location, finances, creativity, all the things, you don't know what you don't know. And we know now. And so we can't go back to that. Yeah. Like, if somebody offered me a 9 to 5, like, you would have to pay me so much and I would require so much freedom and autonomy that it probably wouldn't even be worth it. Like, I just don't want it.
It can, and it's tricky because I guess you do video with this, so they'll see my little description. So I find, because I always describe it as like, and I do it like this, but it's not that we're like above and below, because sometimes people read into that, but it's like you live this like minimal, simplistic, maybe sustainable, off grid, like whatever it is. But the more you do it, you just kind of get a perspective. So it's not that you're like above or beyond, but your view of everything goes from like this to like
very small
this
to much
and
bigger.
You just start seeing how everything's like, when you see one thing at a time, you don't see how they're connected. And then when you start seeing how everything's connected, and I don't know if it's like from literally traveling around and seeing different towns. I think there's a lot to be said for seeing different people in different cultures, and then for seeing different people, different geographical locations, and for seeing different towns and how people interact with their spaces. You learn a lot. Like, on all my travels, I've like learned that like there's so many differences between people, and like small European countries right beside each other can be very different, but like there is always an old man outside a shop. There is always like little bitty ladies doing something. People always want to get together and eat and drink and laugh. Some cultures are just more liberal and more fiery than others. I'm thinking of like British people compared to like beautiful like Spanish influenced countries. But like there's some things that are like through and through the same with everyone, and then there's things that make us different. I don't even know where I'm going with this whole spiel, but it's just the interconnectedness. And the van life, the more you travel,
perspective,
just how people do different things. Like spend some time in Mexico, and or everywhere I go, I try to like be like, oh, you do this with your food, or you do this with your water, or like you live this way. Like, do I like that better or worse than how I do it?
So the more you like see different lifestyles and see different cultures and see different ways of being, you can pick and choose. This works for me, this doesn't work for me. But human beings can't imagine things that they haven't seen before, right? Just like as a blanket scientific statement, we cannot imagine things that we haven't seen before. And so even things that don't exist, we've seen elements of, right? Like unicorns don't exist, but you can imagine a horse and a horn, you can put them together. Like, and so like the more you travel and, or even read, because traveling is a luxury, traveling is a privilege. If the more you read and engage with people, and thank God for the internet, right? Like we can do this so much easier than we could before, and you can pick and choose. Like, an afternoon siesta totally works for me. Gonna make that part of my life. Or, having my food this way totally works for me. And so I think that that's a huge thing. Like more perspective gives you more awareness, more options, more tools to put in your toolkit, and like pick and choose like a little a la mode life.
Well, that's it. You can just make it what it is. And I don't know if people even realize the deliberate living today. I don't think they even get it. And as you were saying that, I was reminded of something we talked about at the beginning, but of course I get like, I'm so into this conversation that I'm just like, and the next point. But it is like you have to shake it up. You have to choose it. And I think you have to go without as well. It's like the sacrifices, the hardships of the lifestyle, I think show that as well. And I think when you just do what society says, it's almost like you're on a conveyor belt and you don't even know. Well, it's not like that original a metaphor for life, a conveyor belt. That's exactly what it is. But it is. It's like you're on a conveyor belt with those little edges, and you just don't even know that you could like fall down onto like the one that covers you in chocolate. I don't know what kind of factory this is now in this metaphor.
It's a donut factory.
It's a candy. It's how it's made, a candy factory. And I'm picturing like donuts, and it's like you're like just a plain donut, and you don't even know that like just one little barricade over, you could be chocolate dipped.
You could just hop your way over to the sprinkles and like have a good time with that.
Maybe your toasted coconut, the most delicious, rarest donut of all. So I mean, like it's a metaphor. It's a metaphor. It's accurate, but it is like if you just don't know, and that's the thing. If you question and you're like, no, I really do want like a family. Like there's nothing wrong with being a family. There's nothing wrong with these normal things,
Not a
but
single
it's
thing.
just like, just choose it. Like choose
Yes.
your life, know what you're doing. And then I think, yeah, it makes you also more like aware, because if you're choosing it, you're like, I'm doing it because this is right. You're not just, I think some people like accidentally do wrong things and they don't know it because it's just,
Oh,
I can't
all the
think of what's wrong.
friggin'
I'm thinking of
time.
like waste. I'm just thinking of waste.
Yeah, I think we need to have you on for another episode because I feel like we just got started, but it's been an hour.
I know. It's been so nice. Well, it's because I've been so excited to chat with you. It's been really nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's been really nice to like get to know you better as well.
Yeah, likewise. I would do this again. And yeah, I think we should have you on again for like a very specific topical conversation or something. Because
Whatever you
I could
want,
talk to you for days.
Yeah, I'll talk to you. And actually, just FYI, everyone, I will be in touch with you as well, because I was going to ask you if you would maybe come on my podcast. So we'll
Oh my
switchy.
God,
But yeah,
yes.
anytime you want to talk, I will talk about anything with you. It's been really nice and like really interesting. And hopefully we get to like meet in person one day as well.
Oh my God, yeah, that would be awesome. Yeah. Our home locations right now are about as opposite as you can get. So that would be a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, are you in the, I love how I do this. Like that's because you're beside me on my screen.
I'm really close.
Yeah, you're somewhere in the West, aren't you? In Arizona?
Yeah. I'm in Arizona. I'm a hop, skip, and a jump from the Mexico border. Like I am in the desert. Very different location from where you are.
That's so awesome. Well, I do have an aunt in Arizona, and then
Really?
I'm like, I'm trying to convince the fella, his parents go to Florida for the winter, so I'm like, so definitely next winter we should drive to Florida and then fly to Mexico, leave the van, fly to Mexico. So we'll see how that goes.
Nice.
Seeping it in.
Yeah. How can people come find you and all of your projects online? I'll link to them in the show notes, but for the audio, where are you?
The best place to find me is probably on Instagram at Travels of Heather. And then I have all my links there. I just started the Vagabond Fables podcast, so you can check that on Instagram as well, but it's linked there. And I'm really enjoying that. And especially like this kind of conversation is great. So this was super enjoyable to be on the other side. And then I'm starting some shops, but yeah, best place to find me is Instagram. And I think I'm actually getting my YouTube channel going again. It's been sleeping for like a year and a half.
Fuck yeah, can't wait for that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm going to finally, after years of like second guessing, there'll be some vlogs, some couple vlogs even, which is crazy. But I'm going to just do some videos where I'm just sitting and talking. I finally have the like cojones to just be like, I don't care if that's not exciting. I'm going to talk. Yeah. You're going to watch it. Well, I mean,
people can that's what you're doing now. Right?
Yeah. Or just leave it on in the background. Just give it a few time.
Oh my God. Thank you, Heather. I could talk to you all day. Yeah. So we will have you on the show again.
Thank you so much.
And thank you to everybody who is here listening. If you have made it to the end of the episode, you know what an incredible thing that is and how thankful I am for every single one of you. If this is your first time, or if you haven't hit the subscribe button yet, go ahead and subscribe, get notifications on when new episodes come out, which is hint, hint, weekly. And leave us a review, do the thumbs up and the 5 stars, all the things that help us get seen by the algorithms. If you know someone who would resonate with Heather's story, send them this episode specifically. And also don't forget our Patreon page, where we have exclusive content like extra long episodes. We have the rapid fire mini sode questions. Heather, I'm going to have you on for that too. And yeah, that's a really good way to come support the show. If you have an extra like $5 a month, help us offset some of the costs that go into producing the show. But otherwise, I'm just really happy y'all are here and getting value out of these conversations. So thank you so much. And tune in next week for another excellent episode. Bye.